Let's go to Daniel Wild, the articulate and always informed Deputy Executive Director of the Institute of Public Affairs. A staggering development in Victoria. Daniel Andrews wants to return Victoria's Electricity Commission to government ownership. Now, Victorians, if you need my advice, that above everything else is one reason not to vote for Daniel Andrews. Now, only in the last week, we've learned of rorts in the government-owned Medicare, massive cost blowouts in the government-run and owned NDIS, more money to be tipped into the government-owned NBN, and don't start me on snowy Hydro 2, billions and billions of dollars over budget. All of those government-owned. For all its weaknesses, the private sector, when it's not choked by bureaucracy and wokeism, is infinitely more efficient than government. But on top of this, Daniel Andrews has announced a renewable energy target of 95% by 2035 and a 2030 target of 65%. To use the language of the pub, the bloke is off his rocker. Daniel Wild joins me. Daniel, this Andrews bloke is kidding, isn't he?
Well, I wish he was, Alan, but I don't think he's kidding. And look, this goes to an important point. This is an admission of failure by Daniel Andrews. This shows that renewables don't work. You've been saying this for years and years and years, and we've been saying this for years, that you cannot have an energy system run on intermittent, unreliable wind and solar. You know, we were told that this would work. We were told that all the smart money is going into wind and solar. But the fact now that Daniel Andrews has admitted that the government needs to take this over shows that the so-called transition to renewables is simply not working. And it's obvious for anyone to see. We've got prices going up. We've got reliability going down. This is a massive national security risk. Coal-fired power stations are closing down. And as we've been saying for years, and as you've been saying for years, Alan, there is nothing to replace this baseload power that's coming off the system. That's why Andrews is proposing for the government to take over the system. And as I say, this is an admission of monumental public policy failure.
Yes, there's another agenda here, I suspect, as well, and that is that if he takes charge of these electricity generation companies, they won't be able to, when they see themselves heading over the cliff, turn back. He's scared that these electricity will one day wake up, private sector, instead of all this Me Too wokeism nonsense, because they're as much to blame as Daniel Andrews as we stand today, but take them all over, because when they see themselves going over the cliff, they might be saying, hang on, we're going back to coal-fired power. He will neutralise that entirely by seeking to own them.
I think that you're spot on there, Alan, with your analysis. This is all political. Labor is all political. They know how to use the levers of power to their own advantage, and they do it shamelessly. Nowhere else is that the case than in Victoria. And let me make another point about the politics. Daniel Andrews buried the report into the deaths caused by the woeful emergency system in Victoria. He released the report on grand final day. Daniel Andrews refused to talk to Virginia Trioli on the ABC of all places about politics. He only wanted to talk about the floods, even though we've just got an election around the corner. And now he's using the floods, an emergency here in regional Victoria, as cover to announce this takeover of the energy system. So this is not about public policy. It's not about informing the Victorian public of what's going on. This is all a political play. It's all about power. Now, the issue that we face here in Victoria and also around Australia is that there has so far been very little political opposition to what is happening.
Correct.
And a big part of that is because the coalition in Victoria supports these kinds of policies. It supported the renewables policies. It supports a policy of net zero. It supports more wind and solar. Right. It won't defend coal-fired power. It's not speaking up for working class regional Victorians and Australians. And so this is what happens. You cannot out-left the left. It never works.
Good on